Welcome back to Animal Songs, a story set to music, written and performed by Jamie Holcomb. Mazandarin, Malakut, Celestial Realm, crow form flies through elementary ideas, the cosmic ocean, out of which all things return and arise. These and other names have been applied to that territory occupied by the subtle body. It weaves its spells out here. Through gross manipulation, the machinist transmutes his immaterial abstractions into concrete realizations. Algebraic formulas elucidate their own angiology. The organon plants the seeds of Porphyrian trees, and Linnaeus codified the forms of life as incarnations of the elementary forms, which Schopenhauer ran together and Hegel polarized for misunderstanding. Polarized for reunion by the synthesis of their antipathies, subtle body, gross body, metaphors enshrouded, astral projection, banana. The Japanese word for cat is neko, and rendered phonetically, the ideogram can be broken apart as ne-ko, which means sleeping girl. Anyone who has ever owned a cat will recognize instantly the idea of the luxuriating princess, the supine, curving form of the cat, indulgently reclining in any patch of sunbeam or abundance of plush cushions and blankets which she can discover. Interestingly, prior to the cat's introduction to Japan, via the Silk Road by way of India or possibly Egypt, the character for neko was applied to any furry creature, most often the particular variety of badger-like animal native to their island, the so-called raccoon dog or tanuki. In old stories, the tanuki is the counterpart to the fox, or kitsune, and together they represent a pair of opposites, much like those embodied in the dog and cat, a dichotomy which is so readily understood that a reiteration of these animals' qualities here would be exhaustive and redundant. Everybody knows what makes a dog and a cat a cat. In a particular canid microcosm, the tanuki and kitsune represent these poles, the former equaling the dog qualities, and indeed the mythological tanuki's totem is an engorged scrotum which he carries over his shoulder, posed iconically like Santa Claus with his toy sack, while kitsune possesses the catness. She has a ring of 9 or more tails framing her behind. All this is to say that there's a lot of crisscrossing in the world of concepts, for the statement, the sleeping girl carried her scrotum over her shoulder, certainly transcends pairs of opposites. What is striking to this observer in particular is how incredibly apt the term neko is for describing the cat, yet the word was not invented in association with her. The concept was there, ready-made to contain her hippie, narcoleptic form when she first hopped off the boat to curl into a basket on a dock in Osaka. The idea, sleeping girl, is so charmingly accurate that ever since I learned these errant facts, I have taken to calling my own feline friend these words, in English, even though he is male. He is still a princess under a spell, cushioned in lavish furs. So where did the idea come from? Surely the tanuki doesn't inspire such a feminine image. He's the guy with the scrotum slung over his shoulder. The crafty fox is anything but asleep. In her stories, more often than not, she's a shapeshifter, dead set on consuming human flesh. Lamentably, I am no scholar of Japanese folklore. I don't even speak the language. My understanding of semiotics is amateur at best. The origin of the sleeping girl, for me, will be forever kept a mystery. My point, hidden within this overgrowth of information, is that there are many chambers in the mansion of the mind, and behind each door there may be a surprising number of beds. Everything, each article which man encounters in this exterior world, all must be put to bed, escorted by the loquacious butler to its appropriate quarters, introduced to the other residents along its hall, in this wing of mind manor, which all things must share. The styles of house are as different as the styles of house. A traditional Japanese home with sliding paper doors and daily rearranged tatami mats and removable beds will certainly welcome guests in a slightly different manner than the manner of a Tudor manor, where the thick mahogany beds lie like displayed corpses. Welcome to my home. Yes, the mind is like a many-celled honeycomb, in which each hexagonal quarter can nourish a larva to a drone, only to be refilled with another syrup-guzzling worm. Imagine if you never supplied that nutritious sweetness to the little gray thing. He'd never grow to have sex with the queen. Perhaps the neko chamber was built less to house a concept than to provide space for a feeling. After all, if the term could be applied to any furry little creature, then perhaps the element of the cat is a bit of a red herring. The sleeping girl as cat analogy is not a comparison functioning in the realm of the visible, but in that secret space of the mysterious sense, that neuromuscular excitement, the perception of which is universally attributed to the organ called the heart. When you come across a puppy or a kitten, don't you just have to grit your teeth and make a high-pitched coo? Cuteness implies weakness, and it inspires the desire to possess the object. Innocent as the love of a puppy may be, desire is still encoded in the symbolic formula of the satyr chasing the nymph. Man, boy, dog, tanuki, that cuteness-inspiring thing is so cuteness-inspiring that it's like a sleeping girl. Now that we are beginning to understand this layer of the wheel, the new mystery which has revealed itself is the cat's part in all this. For that room was prepared for her centuries before she would sneak into the house. There was a whiff of destiny in the air on the day that the staff of black and white-clad servants, the simple kimono-smocked attendants, in a trance they set about preparing the new room. "Who's it for?" asked the Lord, surveying his assortment of things. The girl, who's asleep." Meanwhile, as the waves rocked the boat, the tiger-striped cat sat on the bow, hair blowing in the salty breeze, and she slid her eyes and purred. Unfortunately, despite these fruitful colorations, just about everything I've described here is inaccurate or simply false. Does that make it any less interesting? After all, I didn't invite you all here for a lesson in Japanese. This is not the place for that. What I'm demonstrating, please don't get up, is the crisscross. You see, in the East Wing in particular, but in all corners of our house, the guests are free to roam the halls. Some of the rooms even have connecting doors. A lot of these guys have to share a bathroom. It's all the same plumbing. In fact, what you'll find out if you stick around here long enough is that the key to understanding anything is in making introductions between your guests. Take, for example, the Lord our God. When most hosts welcome this guest into their humble mansions, they believe that such an extravagant personage should be shown to a room of his own, a single king bed, four-poster, crimson curtains drawn, with the door securely locked behind him, the gold fleur-de-lis-style key hidden in some deep fireplace or buried in the backyard, or even the dutiful butler will forget where. Some hosts go so far as to station a maidservant outside the big guy's door, and when any of the actual big guys, giants, Andre These, big red cartoon characters, BFGs, etc., who share this particular hall with him, when any of those guests come lumbering past the door on their way to the shared bathroom, this maidservant is instructed to pop a finger to her lips and hiss aloud, "Shh," so that ultimately the only sound our illustrious visitor gets to enjoy is silence, broken by the occasional outraged shush, like he's in church. Now, in a Japanese-style mansion, what do you think happens when that bloke comes for a visit? Why, all the doors are sliding, not to mention they're built from bamboo frames and rice paper. Inevitably, all the guests are going to cross paths, and then it's up to the host's skill and hospitality as to whether or not they get to know one another. With this kind of flow between spaces, now either the maids will have to silence everyone outside of every room, lest that special personage should be wandering here or there, or they will have to concede that it's going to be a raucous joint, in which case just throw a party, which is what we're all doing here tonight. How much of this you grasp is not really the intention. After all, given your current state, it's doubtful whether most of you will remember a thing come daylight. Truly, I invited you four here because somebody's got to feed my poor cat, who has been subsisting on the gray mice that have always managed to find holes in my constructions. Crisscross, gentlemen. I can only do so much. Time is as constant as space, the walls of the place, so to speak. Don't get up. Let her keep knocking. Even monsters must sleep. There. Now. Crisscross. Tanuki and Kitsune, one way and the other. Yes, I'm largely spewing bits of this and that in your faces, but I have my reasons. There are gifts here for each of you. I come bearing gifts. I didn't understand this portion of my adventure when I began it, as it were. Obviously now the whole thing has come to light. My young scaly chum, you have a lot to learn, and the difference between things is hardly the half of it. My gift for you is a set of brass scales. May you eventually come to understand their purpose. Say it 3 times. That's a good boy. Oof. Now we have the good gentleman, master of all things unimportant. If you and I could work out some way to make this all make sense, regardless of fact or fantasy. Yes, a walking stick. Not the walking stick, the famous ash plant, whose usefulness will be revealed at the decisive moment. But a much simpler, though arguably more fantastical and grandiose invention. Behold, the redwood cane. Get a good look, senor. I'm only showing you this tool once. Note the black ink engravings of snakes and corn-husk goddesses trailing up the body. Remember the curve of its crook. It walks between worlds, Warsha. May you find it in yours. Poof. Well, boys, and then there were 2. I'll have to tell you a story, although I doubt either of you will remember the details tomorrow. Perhaps the feeling will linger. 2. There were 2. In a forest just outside Kyoto, where the maple trees grow wild, when the world still had room for such nonsense, there lived a band of brave tanuki, who only lived for one thing: mushrooms. Day and night, the roving raccoons hunted after those tasty morsels, and for their hard work they were rewarded with constant feasts of fungi. One afternoon, after a successful morning rooting out toad blossoms, the boys were celebrating, toasting mugs of moral mead, which they brewed in barrels the size of 6 scrotums. Reclining amongst their barrels, flicking fresh-hunted shiitake into their snouts, one of the boys exclaimed, "This is a life." "I'll say," whispered the kitsune to herself. She was shrouded in the holly bushes just behind the biggest barrel, spying on the Tanuki's celebration. Her mouth was watering. "Wouldn't it be funny?" she murmured, and she had to stop talking or else she would burst out laughing. The crafty sorceress is always well versed in potions, and she... At this exact moment, the symphony started. That voice which has plagued me since my first conclusion of this adventure, it began to sing. He broke my trance. How I picked up this parasite will become clear later. For now, all I can say is that Peter and Violet were lost. One woke from restless dreams to discover himself locked in the compartment of a wagon, this time sealed with a metal door. There were no mysterious substances on the shelves for any clever children to explore. There was one bottle, however, in the corner of this cell, beside the door. A little light, yes, moonlight, shone through the barred window on the opposite end of the trap. In that shadowed lattice, Peter could see the red gleaming glass, and behind it, those wide-stretched goggle eyes, and the soft wet mouth, open, stuck in a silent wail. He crawled to the bottle and lifted it to the moonlight. Though the body was frozen, floating in fluid, Peter could see his chest rise and fall as if he were breathing, and it felt, to his hopeful, shaking fingertips, as though the glass reverberated with a subtle beating. From the other side of the window came her low chuckle. "Hello, Granny," said Peter. He clutched the bottle to his chest. "Surprise, surprise," she said. The wheels clattered, the compartment shook, the cart rattled on. Meanwhile, at the home of Geppetto Sean Warshaw, the remaining members of the Enterprise crew were scattered around the living room, lying on various makeshift beds, bundles of blankets and extra pillows. Violet was curled into a ball on a thick purple blanket which he had arranged beneath the kitchen table. For whatever reason, he felt safe in this pseudo-cage formed by the table legs. He woke from an imaginary forest where he had been celebrating with animal friends. Now he was crying. On the floor nearby, a figure rolled over in its pile of pillows. "Violet," it was Warshaw. "For why are you crying?" "It's my fault." Now. The gentleman extended a hand to pat his companion on the shoulder. Violet shrank from his clammy palm. "We will find him, both of him, together." The Chimera said nothing. To make Warshaw leave him, he finally sighed. "Sure." The gentleman rolled away, and Violet let his tears fall in silence. I keep the wizard's apartment pretty well attended, although just how well I was meant to attend to it is only now becoming clear to me. Once he revealed the space to me, that was the key. Now, with 4 distinct animal forms under my belt, higher and deeper vistas of transformation have been revealing themselves. My part in this adventure I believe to be that of Raconteur. Now I see. Tangi has been my responsibility for some time now. He passes freely from one room to the next. Here he is beside my rocking chair, dime fresh fur glinting in the sunlight. He'll wander back inside momentarily, grumbling his favorite inquiry. I doubt he'll ever find an answer that satisfies him, though naturally the only real response to his question is yes. The nonsense about Japanese is a way to get at it. All of this is. For the two of us, transformation requires that very quality I've identified in the so-called crisscross, Kitsune and Tanuki, Tanuki and Kitsune. In a curious canid microcosm, those pairs of opposites encoded, across the ocean, at the end of the world, deep within the forest. Sleep, and we'll understand its relevance momentarily, is a biological necessity so that we don't go insane, so that our tissues get a chance to regenerate, assimilate new bits of nutrients, or so they say. Predatory animals, carnivores, and all those whose diets consist of protein-rich fare, we require a great deal of sleep to process the ingested information, so to speak. And so we balance infrequent but targeted and fruitful hunts with constant catnaps. That sleep is a form of digestion is considered to be a theory behind the reason for its existence. Why do we sleep is a question that empirical, data-driven minds find difficult to answer with any degree of certitude. The land of Nod is consistent with Merc. Discreetness is not the Queen's forte. The Queen's fort is a conglomerate of earwax. Scientists have discovered that daily, or nightly, her staff of dutiful drones, draped in blue coveralls, armed with yellow shovels, they set to work mining new bricks from the canals of Eustace, deep in Nodland's famous Valley of the Corpses. Don't let the name fool you. This place bears such a gruesome title merely because it is the space wherein things come to lie, where the mushrooms grow and the earwax flows. How I came to pick up this parasite is the subject of two. There were two. In Japan, certain animals are born with natural magic. These are the tanuki, with masculine life-affirming energy, the crafty kitsune with her plethora of tricks, and the secretive neko, whose magics are myriad, some beneficial, some vengeful, and some totally banal. All of these animals can be friend or foe, just like anybody else. It's all in how you treat the magic, or in how much you are willing to come into conflict with somebody else's spells. Cross a kitsune once, she'll remember for 100 years. Now, yokai is the word for all weird happenings in the realm of Japanese ghost stories. Trust me. And the specific variety of yokai blessed with the ability to shapeshift are known as henge. What looks like an ordinary concubine leaning against the doorframe could easily be a nine-tailed fox or a split-tailed cat, disguised and on the hunt. She'll wait until you're asleep. Otherwise, we go insane. What's crazy? What's interesting about kitsune is that in addition to their negative incarnations, they are also the emissaries of the kami Inari. In Western terms, you might call her the goddess of rice and fertility, life in the Puro vein, i.e. capital L. Inari is an old man lugging a grain sack over his shoulder. Yes, he comes bearing gifts. Crisscross. Inari is a shining white goddess attended by equally white shining foxes. Nobility is written on the face of a cat in repose. The fox says, "I know something you don't know." How I picked up this parasite will become I came to how there's a story, a koan in fact, a tale which serves as a gateway to the understanding about a monk who was teaching and a student asked him a question. Let's say, why? And this bloke bloody answers the kid and is rightly cursed to 500 further lifetimes reincarnated as a fox so that later, when there is a future teacher giving a lecture on why and the how of things happening, an old man is standing at the back of the room until after everyone else exits and the teacher asks him what or who, and the old guy explains his predicament as he is in fact stuck as a fox for X more lifetimes and would gladly like to remedy his transgression against certain questions and their answers so that the old guy who's actually a fox asks the teacher why, and the teacher says how, and the next day everybody finds a dead fox in a ditch outside of town. The future teacher instructs everyone to give the fox body the funeral rites proper to a monk. So at the next lecture, he tells everyone the story of the old man who was actually a fox, and at the end, a young student gets up and asks the teacher, but why? What if he hadn't explained why? And the teacher says, come closer, and says, I'll tell you, and the kid tiptoes up to the master who slaps him. Then he laughs at his face. I thought only barbarians had a beard like that, but you have a beard like a barbarian too. The wind is howling. One day that fist will come for me. One day soon the other foot will fall. Naturally, the wolf shows up first, because the rest of the forest is just jamming to the tune. Crystal hums, shining, a rustle in the bushes. This has been Animal Songs, written and performed by Jamie Holcomb, produced by Supermoon. Find us on TikTok, YouTube, or at our website, gosupermoon.com. That's GOSUPERMOON.com. You can also find our work alongside many other talented artists at looksees.com. That's LOOK-SEES.com. This concludes the Banana chapter. I wonder what spirit we will meet next. Until then, thank you for listening.
All I got to say is, glory be.